I'm going to be focusing really on one aspect of the law today. You probably already kept up on the last couple of years and the many changes that have happened to your health plans, but what everybody's a little nervous about is what's going to happen in 2014. And on December 28th, we finally got a few guidelines as to what this employer pay or play mandate was going to look like. The funniest thing about it is they changed the name to Employer Shared Responsibility Payment. So it's not the play or pay now, it's the Employer Shared Responsibility Payment. And these, I'm going to go over these proposed regulations. Now these are called interim final, and that means that there still could be some tweaking on these. You've got, I believe, until May to make comments on it, and I strongly encourage you to make comments about it. If there's things about it that aren't going to work for your business, be sure to let the health department know about that. We're going to center on some key definitions and concepts as they are outlined in these new regulations, namely who is a large employer, what is a full-time employee, and then what are the tax penalties that you may or may not face. In 2013, you need to determine how many employees you have. It's not going to work if you wait until January 1st of 2014, because what they're asking you to do is to look back into 2013 and to count. You also need to calculate the number of full-time equivalents that you have. And those are your non-full-time, your part-time folks. You know, you're adding them together, dividing the total number of hours by 120. And then you're going to add the number of full-time and full-time equivalents calculated in the previous steps for each of the 12 months in the preceding calendar year. You're going to add these monthly totals. If your average exceeds 50, then guess what? You are a large group employer. You will be considered that. They have allowed you, if you do hire a lot of seasonal employees, that you don't have to count those. There is an exception for those. I get that question a lot if you run a restaurant or if you've got a particular business maybe where you hire a lot at Christmas or maybe you hire just for a particular project and you label those as seasonal and you have that on your policy that these are seasonal, then you don't have to count those in your 50. You're permitted to utilize an optional look-back measurement period with a corresponding stability period. This has been kind of confusing. What they decided was, because we were kind of late getting this proposal, it was the end of 2012 when we finally got it, they said, well, if you've got a January 1st, 2014 renewal date, that's not going to give you a whole lot of time to try to figure out how many employees you have. So what they are allowing you to do is to do your look-back. You can pick a measurement period. It can't be any less than 6 months. And you can pick that period and use that 6 months to determine how many employees you have. To get your data together, whatever you need to do to determine how many full-time plus full-time equivalent that you have. Once you do that, then that's what the numbers you're going to use to base on whether or not you have to worry about the employer shared responsibility payment in 2014. Controlled groups. I get a lot of questions about this because I've got some employers who you may own company A over here, you own company B. Maybe you have separate tax ID numbers, you have separate payrolls, you really consider them to be separate companies, but you own both of them. Well, under the controlled group rules, the government is saying no, in terms of counting those 50 employees and those 50 full-time equivalent, you've got to look at your controlled group. So that means that maybe you only offer insurance for company A and you don't offer it for company B, but you're going to have to in 2014 look at them as a whole. Even if you've got 25 over here and 35 over here, that's 55. Now you're worried about the employer shared responsibility payment. So you are going to have to count controlled group. You do need to get together with your attorney or your tax accountant, your accounting consultants, and find out whether or not that applies to you, because that's going to be big. And I believe the IRS is pretty savvy about it. They're going to be looking for people who are trying to avoid that, so they're going to be looking at these controlled groups. So it's important that you know about that now, and you need to be doing something about it now, not waiting till 2014. Now, if you've determined that you have less than 50 full-time equivalent employees, then you are considered a small group employer now in the eyes of the government. So as a small group employer, you're not required to provide medical insurance to your employees. You do not have to worry about the employer shared responsibility payment. Your employees will have to have medical insurance on January 1st, 2014, just like every American is supposed to have it, with many exceptions. You may continue with your current group plan. You may consider a group plan or individual plans and a health exchange. If you're a large employer, and that's primarily what we're going to talk about today because these rules really apply to that large employer, you've got maybe 2 companies, your control group, you have over 50, and you've determined this, you need to determine who your full-time employees are because these are the folks that are eligible for benefits. If you offer medical insurance, it's got to be affordable and provide minimal value, and we're going to talk about that. If you don't offer it, you may face possible penalties. We're going to talk about that. And you have until the first day of your plan year, beginning on or after January 1st, 2014, to make these changes. That's new. That wasn't originally in the law. Originally it said January 14th, drop dead date. And they came back and they realized that most of us are on a 12-month renewal, and that many of the insurance companies were kind of panicking, thinking, okay, are we going to have to start everybody over on January 1st and start getting renewals out November 1st and all of that? So they came out and said, no, now we're going to allow you to not have to worry about the employer shared payment until your renewal after January 1st, 2014. So if you are lucky and you have a 4th quarter renewal, like in October or November or December, you're going to be very happy. Because when you renew in 2013, you're going to have almost an entire year to have to deal with this and see how everything kind of shakes out. So those of you that have those late renewals and you've always wished you had a 1-1, you're going to be really glad now that you don't.